Alright, let's talk about one of the biggest power games happening right now. Europe and its complicated relationship with Russian gas. For years, European countries have relied heavily on Russia for their natural gas needs. We're talking about nearly 40% of the European Union's gas coming from Russia at its peak. That's enough to keep the lights on, homes warm, and factories running across the continent. But here's the catch. Energy isn't just about warmth and convenience, it's about leverage. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the world saw just how much power Vladimir Putin could wield simply by threatening to turn off the tap. Suddenly, gas wasn't just fuel, it was a weapon. Now, you might wonder, why didn't Europe see this coming? Well, it did, kind of. Over the last decade, European leaders talked about diversifying energy sources, building up renewables, and buying more liquefied natural gas from places like the US and Qatar. But here's the thing. Switching energy suppliers isn't like switching your internet provider. Replacing pipelines with new infrastructure takes time, investment, and a lot of political will. So, when the crisis hit, Europe scrambled. Prices soared, governments rushed to secure new deals, and people started worrying about cold winters and empty factories. Russia, meanwhile, tightened its grip, cutting flows through the Nord Stream pipeline and demanding payment in rubles. It looked, for a moment, like Moscow could choke the European economy just by closing a few valves. But here's where things get interesting. Europe adapted, fast. Countries fired up old coal plants, ramped up renewable energy, and scrambled to buy gas from anywhere but Russia. Citizens conserved energy, businesses innovated, and governments stepped in with subsidies. Sure, it was painful, but Europe didn't collapse. In fact, by the end of 2023, Russian gas imports into Europe had dropped dramatically. The continent learned a tough lesson. Energy dependence is risky, and while Russia still holds some power, its grip isn't nearly as tight as it once was. So, can Moscow really strangle the European economy with gas? Not like before. The balance of power is shifting, and both sides are learning to play a new game, one that's about more than just pipelines and contracts. It's about resilience, adaptation, and the willingness to change when the stakes are highest. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to know more about how energy shapes global politics, stick around for more.